In the suburb of Westwood, everything seemed as tranquil as a landscape painting. Yet, within each home, there were always stories, desires, and pressures hidden beneath the outwardly calm surface. And today, we will step into a slice of everyday life, where happiness is measured by the simplest moments. A house with a cozy architectural style, where the porch gently swayed a pot of geraniums. A few rays of sunlight slipped through the window, filtering into the cream-toned kitchen space. This was the home of Amelia Caldwell, 32 years old, currently holding the position of Human Resources Manager at a mid-sized company in Vancouver. Amelia was bustling about preparing breakfast, the sound of coffee dripping in the medium-sized coffee maker, the aroma of Arabica beans wafting through the room. The scent of toasted bread lingered, mingling with the smell of butter and milk to create a relaxing, pleasant atmosphere. A simple pastel-colored dress hugged her balanced figure lightly. Her bright eyes and gentle smile exuded her usual cheerfulness, but behind them lingered a discreet pensiveness as if something was weighing on her mind that she hadn't yet shared with anyone. Beside the wooden table, where a vase of fresh wild daisies stood vibrantly, Ethan Caldwell was sitting, skimming through a few news snippets in the morning paper. He folded each page neatly, a warm smile flickering across his face as he read about new advancements in the tech industry he was passionate about. Ethan was the senior vice president of a technology company in Vancouver. He wore a well-fitted, finely tailored suit that exuded his characteristic elegance. Despite holding an important position, Ethan always valued the ordinary moments with his family. He had a habit of eating breakfast with Amelia, even if it meant rushing to the office afterward to make early meetings. Amelia, her voice cheerful yet calm. "Ethan, the toast is ready. Try it and see if I overdid it, okay?" Ethan laughing, folding the newspaper lightly and placing it on the table. "I'm sure it'll be perfect. This smell is making me want to eat right now." Amelia smiled faintly, carefully arranging the toast on a white porcelain plate, adding a perfectly cooked sunny-side-up egg and some fresh, tender greens she'd just bought from the farmer's market. The presentation, though simple, radiated refinement, showing that Amelia was meticulous and loved neatness in every detail. Ethan, looking at his wife affectionately, "You know, starting the day with your breakfast is truly a happiness for me." Amelia, placing a steaming cup of coffee beside his plate. "As long as you enjoy it, I'm happy. Even with our busy schedules, I think we should keep this habit. A family without these little moments would be so dull." Ethan, currently the senior vice president of a tech company in Vancouver, was still admired for his effort and managerial talent. But for Ethan, his greatest support wasn't the spotlight of the workplace, but the hearth at Westwood, where every morning he could share a meal with his gentle wife. Ethan finished speaking, flashing a radiant smile. He momentarily set aside the tech projects and headache-inducing numbers on reports. Right now, the ticking sound of the coffee maker was all he needed to start the day. While Ethan savored his breakfast, Amelia leaned lightly against the kitchen counter, holding a coffee mug, her eyes drifting toward the window. Through the glass, the first rays of sunshine illuminated the flower box on the porch, where a few tulips swayed in the cool late spring breeze. She paused in thought, recalling an email she'd received last night about an important upcoming meeting with senior HR management. In her mind, work was a passion, but also a pressure. She had to weigh many decisions and face a myriad of personalities in her team. Yet, like Ethan, what she truly valued was family, the core values rooted in love and empathy. "Amelia," her voice soft but tinged with hesitation, "do you have a lot of meetings today? I've got a meeting with the company leadership, something about big changes in the HR structure, I hear." Today by Chitikiai. Ethan looking up with concern. "I've got a pitch for a new project this morning, but I've got a good feeling about it. And you, don't worry too much. You've been in HR for years. Everyone trusts your expertise and integrity. If they promote you, it's well-deserved, right?" Amelia nodded, her face showing a hint of gratitude. She wasn't the type to seek attention, but she genuinely hoped her abilities would be rightfully recognized. Since childhood, she'd been raised to do more and say less, so when opportunities arose, she often felt both excited and anxious about new responsibilities. Amelia, lowering her voice, her eyes lighting up, "I'll do my best. Oh, next week, do you want to visit my parents in Calgary? They texted saying they miss us a lot. Uh, Ethan, grinning broadly. Great idea. Calgary's beautiful this time of year, and there's the spring festival downtown. A change of pace, plus chatting with family, sounds fun. I think we deserve a relaxing trip after these stressful days. Ethan's words spread an even warmer atmosphere. In the past, they'd worried about balancing work and family. Time together was scarce, but they always tried bit by bit, refusing to let external pressures strain their marriage. Ethan took his last sip of coffee, stood up, and adjusted his suit collar. He walked over and hugged his wife from behind, a small but affectionate gesture that reflected the strong bond between them. Ethan whispering, "Thanks for the amazing breakfast. I've got to go, or I'll hit traffic. Rest if you're tired, okay? Don't push yourself too hard." Amelia chuckling softly, turning to face Ethan. "Don't worry about me. Drive safely, all right? Whoever gets home first tonight cooks, or we could go out for something tasty." Ethan winking. "I vote sushi. It's been a while since we hit our favorite spot on the corner." Amelia giggled, nodding in agreement. Ethan headed to the door, his smile lingering. She watched his figure retreat, silently telling herself how lucky she was to have a husband so understanding and supportive. The door closed softly, leaving the kitchen slightly quieter. Amelia suddenly realized she needed to leave earlier than planned. She hurriedly cleared the cups and plates, tidied everything up, then slipped on a thin beige sweater and stepped outside. The morning air was fresh and slightly chilly, making her shiver. She carried a brown leather bag stuffed with thick work files and didn't forget a small umbrella in case the weather turned. Before locking the door, Amelia glanced back at the house. The wooden sign carved with Caldwell stood out under the warm sunlight. She smiled, took a deep breath, feeling the crisp Westwood air weave through her hair. Her mood was energized, though mixed with a touch of nerves about the meeting. But above all, Amelia trusted that with Ethan's support, she could overcome any challenge. Mornings in Westwood always brought peace and warmth, but behind each door, everyone had their own stories and worries. Amelia Caldwell, with her sincere heart and dedication, was stepping into a promising new day. She had no idea that changes at the company, opportunities, and challenges about to erupt would pull her from her comfort zone. Yet, whatever the future held, the most precious thing remained her family, where she found strength in her weakest moments. The image of Amelia closing the door, the lock clicking faintly. The scene shifted to a clear blue sky, sunlight spilling through maple leaves, promising a day full of events ahead. The serene morning had passed. A new journey was about to begin. The cozy kitchen scene gradually came into view, morning light slipping through the glass window, casting gentle golden streaks across the dining table. The wooden clock on the wall ticked steadily, signaling the morning passing peacefully. At that moment, Amelia had just taken a sip of hot coffee and was about to clear the dishes when suddenly, the phone rang, shattering the quiet stillness. She glanced at the screen, where a familiar name appeared, Frank, her biological father. Frowning slightly, Amelia took a deep breath. A call this early from her family in Calgary usually came with requests or announcements she couldn't refuse. Amelia, her voice tinged with tension but striving for calm. "Dad? What's up this early?" Frank, his voice lively and excited from the other end. "Tonight's your mom and my wedding anniversary. We're having dinner at Chateau Lumiere, 7:30. Bring Ethan along, okay?" Hearing Chateau Lumiere mentioned, Amelia couldn't help feeling pressured. The restaurant was famously expensive in Vancouver, a haunt for those who loved ostentation or craved status affirmation. She knew her parents, Frank and Diane, adored a lavish lifestyle. They loved splurging on luxury items, flaunting their regal existence to everyone around. Amelia's family was notorious for their extravagant spending habits. Her mother, Diane, never missed a chance to show off their wealth. Her older sister, Rachel, was the same, always striving to prove her brilliance, though her actual ability didn't always match her lofty words. And because of this, every call or invitation from her parents left Amelia with a sense of hesitation. Amelia held the phone, silent for a few seconds, as if weighing her response. At that moment, Ethan walked into the kitchen, his face curious. Seeing his wife tense, he didn't ask right away, just tilted his head slightly as if to say, "What's going on, honey?" Catching his encouraging look, Amelia exhaled, calming herself. "Amelia," bowing her head, her voice soft but patient. "Dad, I've got quite a bit going on today. But let me see. If there's no issue, I'll figure it out." Frank from the other end, his tone urging yet joyful. "Good! I know you're busy, but it's a special anniversary. Mom and Rachel will probably be there too. We'll wait for your confirmation text, all right?" With that, Frank hung up, not bothering to hear Amelia say more. She set the phone on the table, her heart a jumble. The clock on the wall suddenly seemed louder in the space that fell silent for a few beats. Amelia looked up at Ethan, half wanting to explain, half unsure where to start. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder, the tender gesture conveying a message. "I'm here, with you through any pressure." Ethan softly, "Something up? You look worried." Amelia sighing, replying quietly, "Mom and Dad invited us to Chateau Lumiere tonight for their anniversary. You know my family into extravagance, judging people by appearances." I... Her voice trailed off, memories of lavish dinners flooding back. From childhood to adulthood, Amelia had always felt out of place amid her family's flashy lifestyle. Her father, Frank, was obsessed with reputation. Her mother, Diane, was consumed by shopping. And her sister, Rachel, never stopped boasting about her high-flying connections. Amelia had often wondered how she could maintain some closeness with her family while staying true to her simple nature. Ethan, smiling encouragingly, "I get that feeling, but it's their anniversary. We can't keep declining forever, right? And who knows? Maybe this time it'll be smoother than you think." Amelia, her lips curling into a bittersweet smirk. "You're always so optimistic. I'll probably go. I just worry they'll pressure us to put on some show. Or worse, they'll argue among themselves like before." Ethan nodding, his eyes firm with resolve. "Either way, I'll be there with you. Let's see it as a chance to connect with them. If it gets out of hand, we'll figure it out together. Don't let the worry ruin your whole day, okay?" Ethan's calm words lightened Amelia's heart. She looked at him with gratitude, telling herself he was the perfect anchor for facing her family battles. In truth, Amelia rarely turned down big family events. Though weary of the extravagance and often irked by her mother's attitude, she still wanted to maintain ties with her loved ones. This time, Ethan's support was the push she needed to accept the invite, but she couldn't shake the nagging fear of awkward situations that might unfold that evening. The camera pulled back from the kitchen, showing Amelia walking to the sofa, setting her coffee mug on the table, and checking her phone. She drafted a short text to her dad, agreeing to be at the restaurant at 7:30 p.m. Tapping send, she felt like she'd just signed an agreement she only partly controlled. Afterward, Amelia scrolled through work-related email notifications. Though she wanted to set aside thoughts of the dinner, her mind stayed tangled. Looking at a family photo on a nearby shelf with Frank, Diane, and Rachel during a lavish Whistler vacation years ago, Amelia vividly recalled feeling detached amid the opulence. The photo showed radiant smiles, but she knew hers wasn't fully genuine. In her memory, Diane glowed in a designer ski outfit, gushing about her latest purchases. Rachel eagerly flaunted a diamond bracelet her boyfriend had given her for Valentine's Day. Frank cared only about bragging that their family could afford a pricey mountainside villa. Meanwhile, Amelia stood quietly, smiling but not truly belonging. That image made her shiver slightly as she thought about tonight's dinner. Amelia glancing at Ethan, her voice pensive. "You know, sometimes I feel completely different from them. I don't like flashiness, don't see the need to show off. But I wonder if I'm too detached, letting Mom and Dad bear the wealthy label all alone." Ethan, stepping closer, sitting beside her on the sofa. "The values you chase are different from theirs. That doesn't mean they're wrong. Maybe your parents have their own fears. They're scared of judgment, of losing others' admiration. And their way of coping is to flaunt. But you've chosen a different path, built on inner strength, talent, and sincerity." Amelia sighing, her gaze gentle. "I hope tonight they don't go overboard. I just want a cozy dinner, even in a fancy restaurant, where we can share what really matters. Health, feelings, future plans. Maybe I also want them to see how wonderful you are, Ethan, so they stop imposing or comparing you to anyone else. Ethan chuckling lightly, holding her hand. Then we'll do our best to keep the peace. But if something happens, I'll face it with you. Don't forget, I've got some experience handling tense situations in big meetings too, you know? Ethan's playful remark dispelled the heavy mood, coaxing a gentle smile from Amelia. She rested her head on his shoulder, feeling warmth pulse through his steady heartbeat. Sometimes, just having someone listen and stand by you gave the courage to confront family struggles head on. Frank's call had stirred a mix of emotions in Amelia. Her love for her family still burned bright, but their differing lifestyles left her in constant inner conflict. Luckily, she had Ethan the calm, understanding man at her side. Tonight's dinner, though laden with anniversary significance, was also a test of the relationships she still wrestled with. Outside the Caldwell house, early sunlight lingered on the grass, birds chirped from branch to branch. Through the window, we see Amelia organizing files while Ethan packed his briefcase. They were ready for a workday, carrying a mix of anticipation and determination. In the distance, Vancouver's majestic mountains loomed, half hidden in the morning mist, a metaphor for the challenges awaiting them. Tonight, at Chateau Lumiere, Amelia's family would gather. They'd raise glasses to toast Frank and Diane's wedding anniversary, but they might also face unpredictable clashes and disagreements. The wind chimes tinkled softly as the Caldwell door closed, marking the start of a morning full of trials. That afternoon, Vancouver was overcast and damp. Fine drizzle fell like a delicate veil over the downtown streets, turning the pavement into a giant mirror reflecting the twinkling streetlights. Beneath the golden glow, a stately old building with Renaissance European architecture stood proudly. Chateau Lumiere. Intricate carvings on the arched entrance recalled a bygone era of grandeur, while the ivory paint had been skillfully restored to enhance its elegance. A cold gust swept through, making the gold sign engraved with Chateau Lumiere tremble slightly. Light spilled from the large glass windows onto the street, revealing well-dressed patrons inside, sipping wine and chatting. A taxi glided to the curb. The door opened, revealing Amelia Caldwell's footsteps. She shivered in the biting Vancouver night. Instinctively, she looked up at the building, exhaling a sigh. Her mind flashed to her husband's words. If things get tense, I'll be there with you. But for now, Ethan hadn't arrived, tied up in an urgent meeting and promising to join her a bit late. Amelia wore a beige trench coat over a navy dress, a knee-length, form-fitting piece that highlighted her graceful figure. She quickly grabbed her umbrella from the taxi's back seat, paid the fare, and hurried into the main lobby. Her steps echoed evenly on the marble floor, reflecting her innate confidence, though a trace of worry lingered in the corners of her eyes. As soon as Amelia stepped inside, the cozy ambiance of Chateau Lumiere welcomed her. The lilting sound of a piano drifted from a corner, blending with the low hum of elite conversation. Crystal chandeliers cast a shimmering glow onto leather-upholstered sofas, where a few guests awaited open tables. A red carpet stretched toward the reception desk. There, Andrew, the restaurant manager, bowed courteously. He had a polished look, neatly combed hair, a fitted suit, and a professional smile that spoke of years in upscale dining. Andrew, his voice deep and warm. Welcome, Miss Caldwell, to Chateau Lumiere. Your family is already at the VIP area. Please follow me. Amelia, smiling faintly, but unable to hide her unease. Thank you, Andrew. Sorry I'm late. I hope they're not too upset. Andrew's tone remained gracious. They just finished the main course, ma'am. That detail made Amelia's brow furrow briefly. A thought flashed through her mind. They ate before the agreed time? Another scheme, perhaps? Amelia followed Andrew past rows of tables, where elegant guests savored dishes under flickering candlelight. Her steps felt heavier, her heart pounding as she anticipated her parents' and sisters' reactions. At the VIP table, Amelia saw a scene that made her want to turn back. Frank, her father, leaned into a leather chair, his expression half satisfied, half weary. Her mother, Diane, sipped wine from a crystal glass, Her red lips curved in a smile that feigned aristocracy. Her sister Rachel sat with legs crossed, wearing an elaborate dress glittering with sequins. The table was littered with lobster shells, steak bones, and an expensive bottle of wine, now holding just a few drops at the bottom. Clearly, they'd finished the main meal. Diane, feigning a laugh as Amelia approached. "Oh, there you are finally. You're late, dear. I thought you weren't coming." Rachel, smirking mockingly. Typical little sister, always showing up late as usual. Rachel's words stabbed at Amelia's pride. Her sister had always carried an air of superiority, never once offering Amelia genuine praise from childhood to now. Amelia slowly removed her trench coat, suppressing her irritation. She took a deep breath, deciding to stay composed. "Amelia, polite but stiff. Sorry for being late. I just got off work. You've all finished eating already? I thought 7:30 was the start." Frank cleared his throat, avoiding his daughter's gaze. Perhaps he felt awkward for calling her so late, but Diane maintained her grandiose tone. Diane, brushing the pearl strand on her neck, half smiling. "Oh, I knew you were busy, so we ate first to avoid starving. If you're hungry, order something. Actually, you can cover the bill too, right?" Tonight's feast was quite costly. That last sentence carried a clear implication. They expected Amelia to pay. Her fingers instinctively gripped the chair's edge. Her breathing quickened, but she fought to stay calm, telling herself, "Stay cool, don't snap. It's their celebration." In the opulent atmosphere of Chateau Lumière, Amelia began to see the setup. Her parents and sister had deliberately eaten early, racking up a huge bill and expecting her to foot it. A quiet anger simmered within her, clashing with the soothing piano notes filling the hall. Amelia sat down, setting her handbag aside, forcing a smile. Her eyes swept over the remnants on the table: large, pricey lobster shells, prime beef bones, and the famed Bordeaux Grand Cru bottle. This very extravagance gnawed at her. Amelia swallowing hard. "Looks like everyone enjoyed the meal, huh?" Rachel, tapping her nails on the table. "Of course! Everything here is top-notch. And you know, it's rare for the family to get together. I figured this was your chance to show some filial piety to Mom and Dad." The provocative remark stung. Rachel always knew how to spark family friction. In the past, she'd competed with Amelia in school, only to drop out of college and join their father's company. Jealousy over Amelia's skills and success often drove Rachel to biting comments. Diane took another sip of wine, her gaze piercing her daughter. "Diane, are you ordering anything? Or should Andrew bring it? Or do you just want a salad and join us for dessert?" Amelia, clenching her teeth, forcing a smile. "I'm not that hungry. I'll probably just get a light salad." She knew her stomach was growling, but her frustration overshadowed any appetite. She suspected her parents had intentionally booked early, eaten extravagantly, and waited for her to pay. But why? Wasn't this their anniversary? Andrew appeared, bowing. "Andrew, would you like any desserts, esteemed guests? We're renowned for our crème brûlée and chocolate mousse." Rachel, waving a hand. "2 crème brûlée, 1 chocolate mousse, and another bottle of white wine." "Please?" Amelia flinched. Her mind screamed, "More wine? Are they piling on the bill?" Still, she stayed silent, afraid of escalating things. Andrew gave her a probing look, perhaps sensing her strain, but he only bowed and withdrew quietly. Frank coughed lightly, trying to sound serious. "Actually, I invited you tonight to discuss something. The company needs more capital, and you've got a good income. If you could help or introduce someone to invest, I'd really appreciate it." Amelia, staring at her father, heart racing. "Dad, I'm just an HR manager, not an investor. I can't just arrange funding for you. Besides, isn't your company still running fine?" Diane, cutting in sharply. "We raised you this far, and you can't help at all? If Ethan's as great as you say, surely there's a way, right?" Her mother's pointed question thickened the air. Rachel leaned back, chuckling softly. "With a husband as a VP at a big company, you must have plenty to sponsor Mom and Dad. Got any secret stash hidden, Amelia?" Veins pulsed on Amelia's forehead. She bit her lip, struggling to stay calm. Her thoughts clashed. They don't just want me to pay for dinner, they want to borrow or squeeze money out of me? Anger threatened to erupt, but she dreaded a scene in public. Never had Amelia felt so cornered. Under the elegant lighting, she faced three loved ones who felt so distant. Her frustration swelled, while Frank, Diane, and Rachel shamelessly pressed their agenda. A moment later, Andrew returned with the desserts and a chilled bottle of white wine. He set them down gently, glancing at Amelia as if to ask, "Are you okay?" Without speaking, Amelia sat still, eyes fixed on the entrance, longing for Ethan's figure to appear. She needed him now to avoid facing this barrage alone. Rachel, prodding, "What are you staring at? Don't tell me Ethan's late like you, too." Amelia, stifling her anger, replying curtly, "He's tied up in an urgent meeting. He'll be here soon." Diane shifted the wine glass between her hands, pressing further. "Do you think this loan plan's feasible? With Ethan's position, investing in the family company shouldn't be a big deal. We're all one family, after all." Amelia, forcing a strained smile. "Every investment decision needs careful review. I can't decide alone. Besides, Ethan has to agree, and we'd need to see your books, your financial situation. Everything has to be transparent." A heavy silence descended. Clearly, Amelia had issued a warning. Transparency, something her family rarely offered. Frank clicked his tongue, avoiding her gaze, visibly displeased. Diane set her glass down. Rachel pursed her lips in a smug grin, as if pleased to have cornered Amelia. Around them, the orchestra played a melodic piano piece, starkly contrasting the brewing explosion at the VIP table. The wine bottle was empty, the creme brulee plates scraped clean. Rachel signaled Andrew to clear the table, then turned to Amelia coldly. "Rachel, time to settle up, right? You can just pull out your card. Think of it as an anniversary gift for Mom and Dad." Amelia clenched her fists, indignation choking her. Before she could respond, the entrance door creaked open. A faint smile bloomed on her lips as she spotted Ethantal in a navy suit, striding in, his eyes scanning the restaurant for her. "He's here," Amelia thought, quietly hoping her husband could help her navigate this. The verbal sparring was about to get trickier now that her family's true intentions were laid bare. Still, doubt lingered in her heart. Could Ethan defuse this, or would this family storm keep dragging them into chaos? The piano slid smoothly into a deeper melody, as if foreshadowing an unexpected turn. At the VIP table, all eyes stayed glued to Amelia and Ethan, awaiting the next move. The air at the VIP table grew taut as a bowstring when Amelia stood, suppressing her boiling anger to keep her voice as steady as possible. A slight quiver at the corner of her mouth betrayed she'd reached her limit, yet she held back. Amelia, inhaling deeply, forcing a polite smile. "Andrew, could you please call the senior manager for me? I'd like to confirm something about the reservation time." Andrew's brow furrowed slightly. He bowed and hurried backstage. Meanwhile, Ethan stood near the entrance, offering Amelia a gentle smile. He nodded, signaling he was there, ready to back her unconditionally. Though he'd just arrived, he seemed to sense the oppressive tension radiating from her family's table. On the marble floor, the sound of James Hartman's, the senior manager's shoes rang out evenly and decisively. He carried himself with confidence, his silver hair neat, his dark suit reflecting a polished professionalism honed over years. In his hand, he held a tablet, stopping before Amelia and Ethan. "James," his voice deep and courteous. "Greetings, esteemed guests. I'm James Hartman, senior manager of Chateau Lumiere. How may I assist you, Miss Caldwell?" Behind James, Andrew bowed slightly, stepping aside. Amelia's family remained seated, watching in silence, as if dreading something about to be exposed. Amelia, calm but icy. "Could you tell me the exact reservation time for my family, the Wilsons?" James, sliding his finger across the tablet screen. "Yes, the reservation for the Wilson family is listed as starting at 6 p.m. There's a special note that Ms. Amelia would arrive at 7:30. Instantly, she heard Diane gasp sharply, while Rachel raised her brows, exchanging worried looks. Frank sat still, fingers tapping restlessly on the table, as if calculating an escape. Nearby diners began to notice, a few curious gazes turning their way. Amelia faced her family, her eyes boring into each one. Determination flashed in her gaze, a rare sight for them. Amelia, her voice dripping with bitterness. So, you all came at 6, ate first, and only called me for 7:30? Her question rang out, soft yet steely, throwing the family into disarray. Suddenly, a voice sounded from the entrance, warm with a hint of humor. Ethan. Sorry I'm late. I swung by to check a few things with our restaurant. He stepped forward, standing by his wife, resting a hand on her shoulder to steady her. Ethan's arrival stunned Diane, Frank, and Rachel. Their eyes wavered noticeably. A group at a nearby table paused their talk, glancing over with intrigue. No one had expected that behind Ethan's mere tech VP demeanor, he and Amelia held significant ownership in a chain of luxury restaurants, including Chateau Lumiere. To Amelia's family, this was earth-shattering news. They'd always seen her as an ordinary daughter with a decently paid job, never dreaming of such wealth. Now the truth unraveled, leaving them dumbfounded. Ethan bowed to greet James. James nodded back, his demeanor shifting to one far more deferential than with typical guest. Niece. James, smiling professionally. Mr. Miller, glad you're here. I followed your instructions to arrange everything smoothly. That greeting made Diane's jaw drop. Rachel paled, nearly dropping her glass. Frank stiffened, eyes fixed on the marble floor. Ethan, standing tall, arms lightly crossed, speaking to James, but loud enough for Amelia's family to hear. Yes, thank you, James. I wanted to check on service tonight and confirm some details. By the way, my wife, Amelia, is the majority shareholder in this restaurant chain. I'm sure James here knows that. Ethan's words hit like a sudden storm in the already tense space. Amelia looked at her husband, warmth and relief flooding her. All this time, she and Ethan had lived discreetly, avoiding flaunting their finances or status, wanting only a peaceful life. They'd never even told her parents about their wealth or restaurant ownership. Diane slammed her wine glass down, clinking loudly, starting to speak but fumbling. Rachel stared at Amelia, her eyes a mix of shock, envy, and a touch of fear. Frank sweated, struggling to stay steady in his chair, clearly at a loss to justify exploiting his daughter. Amelia took a step forward, facing her family. Gone was her submissive air. In the chandelier's golden glow, she radiated rare confidence and resolve. Amelia, her voice slow but firm. Mom, Dad, Rachel, why did you book the table for 6, eat first, and only call me for 7:30? Was the real goal to make me pay for this expensive meal? Rachel opened her mouth to deny it, but faltered, unable to find words. Diane, annoyed, cleared her throat. Diane. I didn't mean anything by it. We just wanted you to come later so you wouldn't be rushed. Ethan smiling faintly but humorlessly. Sorry, but Ms. Amelia really was swamped with work. That's why I'm late too. Still, we made it here out of respect for Uncle Frank and Aunt Diane's anniversary. James, sensing the delicate situation, bowed and excused himself. Andrew followed, leaving the family their privacy. Now, at the table, it was a direct confrontation between the young couple and the three Wilsons. A few nosy guests still peeked over, though they kept their distance. Frank, exhaling sharply, tapping the table lightly. Amelia, maybe we overdid it, but I hope you understand the family companies hit some cash flow snags. I just thought, with you in HR and your husband a VP, maybe you two could help financially. Amelia frowning. Help? How much do you want? Why didn't you just tell me straight instead of forcing me to pay for this dinner? Diane grabbed Frank's hand, as if silently urging him not to say too much. Rachel clenched her fists on her lap. Rachel, her voice shaky, don't misunderstand, sis. We're family. I thought you'd be happy to help. Who could have known? She glanced at Ethan, her eyes unable to hide jealousy as she realized her little sister's husband outshone her wildest assumptions. Amelia, enunciating clearly, her eyes sharp. Family is for sharing, but sharing honestly, not through deceitful tricks. If you're struggling, why not tell me up front? Why schedule me late, set up this feast, and then demand I pay? Diane faltered, her lips trembling. Finally, she let out a sad sigh. Diane, I'm sorry. I just wanted to save face with friends, keep our family classy. I knew you were capable, but I never imagined you owned stakes in this restaurant. I. Amelia's eyes softened, catching the remorse in her mother's voice. Ethan, supporting his wife, keeping it gentle. If you really need help restructuring the company, I can introduce some financial experts. But investing? That's a serious discussion, not a sudden demand like this. Frank stayed silent, head bowed, hands clasped. Once proud and haughty, he now faced the reality of his dead end. Rachel lost her smug air, her gaze distant, as if fearing total humiliation. Around them, the piano played on softly, a backdrop at odds with the fraught exchange. For a moment, no one spoke, just awkwardness lingered. Seconds later, Ethan took a menu from a passing waiter, bowing politely as he was invited to order. Ethan offering a courteous smile to the waiter, then turning to Frank, Diane, and Rachel. Tonight's still Uncle Frank and Aunt Diane's anniversary. I think we should have some champagne to toast, though things got messy. I hope we can find a way forward. Amelia looked at her husband, nodding slightly. She didn't want the night to devolve fully into a fight. If her parents could humble themselves and admit their struggles, she was willing to discuss aid, but only with honesty. Bob Frank, head lowered in regret. Amelia, I'm sorry. I know I should have been upfront with you, but I thought our family really. He hesitated, a father's eyes glinting with remorse. Amelia, gentle yet firm. Our family can only grow stronger if we all share openly. I don't blame you for wanting a good life, but the way you went about it was wrong. Rachel squeezed Amelia's hand lightly, as if seeking empathy. She'd likely felt the weight of the family company's losses too. The initial envy in her eyes faded, replaced by shame. This cards-on-the-table moment didn't just unveil Amelia and Ethan's secret, it forced her family to face facts. They needed to shed their grandiose, unrealistic thinking to rebuild the company. For Amelia, it proved her independence, wisdom, and resolve, qualities her family had long overlooked. Ethan ordered a mid-tier champagne not too lavish, but elegant enough to ease the mood. He poured 4 glasses, handing them out. The chandelier's light danced on the tiny bubbles, shimmering on the clear crystal. Though issues remained, a small spark of hope flickered in her parents' contrite demeanor and Rachel's quiet shift. Ethan, raising his glass, smiling lightly. To Uncle Frank and Aunt Diane's anniversary. May our family find common ground and overcome every hardship. Amelia lifted her glass, clinking it gently against her father's, mother's, and sister's. The faint chime rang out, a fragile sound signaling reconciliation, and the end of the family's charade. Amid Chateau Lumiere's luxury, it was time they looked at each other with truer eyes, rebuilding lasting values instead of clinging to lies and showiness. The piano shifted to a warmer tune, like a soft sigh after a storm. The family, reeling, accepting, and slightly regretful, was poised to take a vital step forward. The VIP table at Chateau Lumiere felt eerily still after the revelation. The piano's gentle notes echoed through the hall, stirring an unnamed pang in the hearts of those involved. In the chandelier's golden blaze, time seemed to freeze, leaving only the 5 family members, Frank, Diane, Rachel, Amelia, and Ethan, facing each other with a tumult of conflicting thoughts. Suddenly, Frank Amelia's father slumped in his chair, no longer able to maintain his long-held sturdy facade. His trembling hands gripped the table's edge, his sunken eyes revealing pent-up exhaustion. At that moment, his proud shell melted, exposing an older man weighed by burdens. Frank, his voice shaky, struggling to speak. I'm sorry. We should have told you everything long ago. He tried to say more, but his throat seemed to seize, words failing him. His eyes reddened, brows knitting deep with anguish. Diane, Amelia's mother, abruptly teared up. She drew a labored breath, then burst into sobs, as if an emotional dam, long restrained, had finally broken. She grabbed a napkin, dabbing it to tears streaking her makeup, her voice breaking. Diane. I'm so ashamed. We kept pretending we were rich. I was terrified of gossip, of people thinking we'd fallen behind, of losing face. She spoke in fits, pausing to stifle sobs. Rachel, Amelia's sister, glanced at her mother with teary eyes. Unable to hold back, her slender shoulders shook. Rachel, softly. Tu was so jealous of you, Amelia. I just wanted to prove I was worth something, that I wasn't lesser. But all I did was add pressure. I was wrong. She pressed her hands to her face, tears rolling down her cheeks. Seeing this, Amelia's heart ached not from anger anymore, but from sorrow. Each heartfelt confession peeled back the layers of tension that had built up in the family for so long. Frank, head bowed, voice thick with regret. Tu should have told you about the company. Since the 2008 financial crisis, we've carried huge debt. I thought I could handle it myself, but the harder I tried, the deeper I sank. I didn't want anyone to know the Wilsons were failing. Diane, clutching her husband's arm tightly. Neither your father nor I wanted you to worry. We thought if we kept up the rich image, people would keep investing or respecting us. But in the end, we were just straining ourselves, fooling ourselves. Rachel, head lowered, tears streaming. Tu was so jealous of you, Amelia. Jealous that you got an education, a steady job, married someone amazing like Ethan. I acted arrogant, always trying to outshine you, craving mom and dad's attention. Now I see how foolish I was. Those words cut through the once quiet space like knives, stirring Amelia to the point she could barely hold back her own emotions. She realized they'd lived too long under a veneer of vanity and delusions of status, only to pay the price with fractured bonds. Amelia exhaled slowly, looking at her family with sad yet tender eyes. She suddenly grasped Ethan's hand, feeling the warm, steady pulse from him. He was the emotional rock giving her strength to face this truth. Amelia, her voice calm and resolute. Mom, Dad, Rachel, I'm really hurt by what you've done. But hearing you all pour your hearts out like this, I feel relieved too. Maybe we need to admit and let go of all the showing off to truly face our problems. Diane sobbed again, while Frank nodded rapidly, as if in agreement. Rachel managed a shaky smile, her eyes still red. Amelia turned to her husband. Amelia. Ethan, say something. You promised you wouldn't abandon my family. Ethan, smiling kindly, his gaze on Frank, Diane, and Rachel. I deeply respect family ties, and I believe when people genuinely want to change, there's always a way. The real estate company's crisis is tough, but not hopeless. I know some experts in restructuring and financial management who could advise Uncle Frank. Frank looking up, a flicker of hope in his still sad eyes, squeezing Diane's hand to reassure her. Frank, his voice hoarse. Thank you, Ethan. Too. No, I was wrong to deceive my daughter, to deceive everyone. I'll seriously look at ways to fix the debt, no more hiding or faking. Diane, tears brimming, turning to Amelia. I promise from now on, no more chasing showiness. Tu was just scared of what old friends and colleagues would think, but I forgot what matters most is our family's real happiness. Rachel, beside them, smoothed a fiery red curl, her voice hesitant. Rachel, I'll change too. I mean, I admire you, Amelia. Maybe I'll find my own path. Stop leaning on mom and dad. Stop competing pointlessly. Amelia nodded slowly, a warm feeling rising within her. The gap between her and her family seemed to narrow. Though obstacles lay ahead, today, they dared to look each other in the eye and bare their souls. Amelia, her gaze softening, brushing the back of her mother's hand. I don't want anything more than for us all to stop hiding, stop lying, and stop using money or face as a measure of family. Family means love, understanding, and helping each other. I know everyone has their reasons, but don't let them become excuses to hurt others anymore. Frank, head bowed, voice earnest. My whole life, I chased work and titles. I forgot my kids were my real support. If I'd told you sooner, things might not be this bad. But I hope we can start over, Amelia. Amelia said nothing, just looked at her father with a spark of fondness. She reached out, taking Frank's hand. Diane leaned forward, placing hers atop it. Rachel, choking up, added her own. The four linked into a circle of reunion, in a space that, mere minutes ago, bristled with conflict. From the nearby chair, Ethan watched this scene, unable to hide a faint smile. He felt proud and happy that Amelia had finally reclaimed her family's honesty. He signaled Andrew, asking him to bring light desserts like whipped cream and fruit, both to calm everyone and as a toast to mending. Ethan to his wife's family, his voice sincere. I know the past can't be undone, but the present and future can. Uncle Frank, Aunt Diane, Rachel rest assured. Financial troubles always have solutions if we're open and persistent. As for Amelia and me, we'll help within our means. But the first condition is we agree. No more scheming or tricks. Diane nodded, her voice choked. Thank you, Ethan. Frank stayed quiet, but his look held deep gratitude. Rachel wiped her tears, forcing a smile, resolute despite the awkwardness. The confessions had been voiced, bringing understanding in their wake. The Wilsons, after years of straining under a lavish facade, finally dared to face reality. Amelia, once underestimated, now stood as their anchor. And Ethan, the steady husband, reaffirmed that genuine care outweighed any vast fortune. The mood warmed as Andrew brought small, charming dessert plates with fresh strawberries and rich vanilla cream. The wine had dwindled, but no one rushed to order more. Instead, they traded heartfelt words. Frank even boldly asked Ethan and Amelia to connect him with financial experts, scheduling work for early next week. Rachel voiced her intent to build her skills, to stop relying on her parents. She candidly admitted she'd spent years as a rich man's daughter, never fully striving. Now, facing crisis, she grasped where true value lay. Rachel, her voice raspy, if there's anything I need, I'll learn it myself, or I'll take a part-time job somewhere to support myself. I feel it's time to prove to Mom and Dad my ability isn't just sitting in the family office. Amelia gave an encouraging smile, regarding her sister with respect. Tiny glints of emotion shone in her eyes. This was the first time Rachel truly expressed a desire for independence. But Amelia, gentle but brimming with resolve. If everyone's ready, I believe our family can overcome this. When we're honest with each other, nothing can break us. Frank, nodding, hands clasped to his chest. I sincerely thank you, Amelia. And Ethan, too. I hope you'll give your mom and me a chance to make amends. Diane, pressing a napkin to her cheek, eyes misty. If only I'd realized sooner. But it's not too late to start again, right, dear? Amelia just smiled kindly, gripping her mother's hand tightly. Ethan sat beside her, silent, but his face radiating faith in a brighter future for them all. In the chandelier's shimmering light, the five raised their glasses, not to flaunt luxury this time, but to celebrate a fresh start, a pledge to fix mistakes together. Gaps narrowed, misunderstandings faded. The piano now played a soothing tune, underscoring the healing turn the family had long awaited. Across the restaurant, a few guests smiled, witnessing the touching reconciliation reminder that behind the glitz, family is where we return when all collapses. And most crucially, only sincerity and forgiveness pave the way to real happiness. Chateau Lumiere's soft golden light reflected off glistening tears and shy smiles on each face. They knew that, despite past errors, they still had time to mend and begin anew together. Outside the windows, pure white snowflakes fell slowly, draping roofs and paths in a fluffy blanket. Winter in Westwood carried a peaceful, serene charm, sometimes hinting at the magic of fairy tales. From afar, warm light flickered through glass panes, signaling reunion after the storms Amelia's family had endured. The camera panned slowly to Amelia and Ethan's modest yet cozy two-story home. Thin smoke drifted from the rooftop chimney, curling into the frigid air, hinting at the roaring fireplace inside. By the wooden door painted blue, a winter pine wreath hung, accented with red ribbon. In the living room, flames danced in a classic fireplace, radiating pleasant warmth. 4 people sat gathered: Frank, Diane, Rachel, and Amelia. In a farther corner, Ethan busied himself brewing tea in the kitchen, occasionally smiling at the lively chatter echoing back. Gone were the extravagant outfits of old. Now Frank wore just a thick gray sweater, his face seemingly free of the worry lines once etched there. On the table before him lay stacks of files and documents about restructuring the real estate company. He reviewed each page meticulously, highlighter circling key items, proving his seriousness and readiness to tackle hardship. Diane stepped out from the adjoining kitchen, her apron flecked with flour, the sweet scent of freshly baked cookies trailing her. After years under the guise of a wealthy lady, she now found joy in the simple act of baking for her family. A wine-red sweater hugged her frame, hair neatly pinned back, her face aglow with a newfound radiance. Rachel sat by the fire, clutching a sheaf of papers. No longer haughty or showy, she wore a plain hoodie and jeans, her long curls loosely tied back. Her eyes sparkled with joy, as if holding a sky full of hope. She kept glancing at the documents, her freshly earned real estate broker certification. Rachel, eyes tearing with happiness, voice trembling with emotion. "I passed! I did it myself, sis!" Amelia, resting a hand on Rachel's shoulder, smiling warmly. "Fantastic! I believe you can go even further." Rachel hugged Amelia tightly, too moved to speak. Once sisters locked in rivalry, they now shared only trust and heartfelt support. Frank looked up from his papers, his face lighting up as he watched his daughters bond. Since the company sank into debt, he'd faced immense pressure and loss. But that shock had opened a path to change. The business was gradually restructuring, loans were being sorted rationally, and above all, he'd learned to walk with his family in truth. Frank, his voice deep and warm. "Congrats, Rachel. I believe you can stand on your own. Oh, and I must thank Amelia and Ethan. Those financial experts you introduced are top-notch. The company's recovering, slow but steady." Diane left the kitchen, setting a tray of golden, crisp cookies on the table, their vanilla butter aroma wafting out. She removed her apron, proudly showing off. Diane, smiling kindly. "How's this?" "Amelia's cookie recipe. I've been practicing for weeks. Good enough, everyone?" Amelia, picking one up, tasting it. "Delicious, Mom! You might even outdo me. You and Dad pair it with Ethan's hot tea, okay?" Diane nodded at that, looking content. She'd never thought she'd one day find happiness in cooking, but instead of wasteful shopping, she now delighted in baking by hand, sharing with others, and saving unneeded costs. Sometimes, she mused, the truest richness wasn't jewelry or villas, but the quiet comfort of togetherness. 6 months ago, the Wilsons were mired in misunderstandings and the weight of money and status. Yet now, they'd found balance of happiness born from releasing vanity and facing struggles with honesty. To sustain this simpler life, they'd sold their oversized mansion, moving to a smaller home in Westwood's outskirts. Extravagant expenses were cut, replaced by unity and mutual aid. In the room's corner, atop the mantel, sat a framed photo of the family before their new home. Though small, the apartment was adorned with humble yet warm touches: wooden chairs, wool rugs, small table lamps, each detail handpicked by Amelia and Diane. On the wall, a framed motto read, "Family, where life begins and love never ends." Ethan emerged from the kitchen with a steaming teapot, chamomile scent mingling in the air. He smiled at the sight of the family, joking, like a painting of reunion. Setting aside their restaurant ownership and vast assets, he and Amelia preferred these mundane joys. "Ice and tea, ice." Ethan placing the teapot down, pouring cups. "Chamomile tea treat, everyone. It's cold today, this'll warm you up fast." Diane, beaming. "Thanks, Ethan. Cookies and tea, what could be better?" Frank nodded, sipping his face easing into relaxation. He glanced at Rachel, recalling her past defiance and arrogance. Now she'd grown, earning her professional license, ready to enter the housing market with a hunger to prove her real worth. He couldn't hide his proud smile. Rachel, inhaling deeply, eyes aglow. It's just a certification for now, but I feel like I'm starting a new life. Mom, Dad, just wait. I'll make it on my own. No more leaning. Frank smiling, touching Rachel's hand lightly. Keep it up, daughter. I've always believed in your ability. You just need to face the challenge to overcome. Amelia teasing softly. I just worry you'll get too busy and forget me. Drop by sometimes for dinner with us and Mom and Dad, okay? Rachel grinned impishly, nibbling a cookie. Diane fully shed her apron, settling into a chair facing the fire, gazing at the snow outside and reminiscing. 3 years ago, she couldn't have pictured loving a small house, simple dinners, knitting, or baking. But upheaval had taught her the worth of the most ordinary things. Life isn't always easy, but when we choose love and truth, it lightens. The Wilsons were no longer people labeling themselves elite, they were now a crew on one boat, ready to row through any waves. In the corner, Ethan and Amelia shared a sparkling, affectionate glance. Silently, they communicated with their eyes. Everything's fine now, honey. Our family's truly united. Diane clapped suddenly. Diane, all right, I want a photo right now. Today's too happy to let pass. Amelia, grinning, raising her phone. Great idea, Mom. Everyone, scoot closer. Rachel scrambled up, wedging between her parents. Amelia stood side by side with Ethan, the scene utterly cozy by the firelight. An unscripted moment brimming with meaning. The phone camera flashed, capturing their authentic smiles. Frank, after the shot, voice deep with feeling. Daughters, son-in-law, thank you so much. Not just for the company, but for pulling us closer. Amelia tender, Mom, Dad, we're a family. Whatever happens, we'll always find a way if everyone's honest. Ethan nodding. We just did what needed doing. But you, Mom, Dad, Rachel, you've all tried hard too. The credit's the whole family's. The talk soon shifted to lighter topics. The coming holidays, Rachel's startup plans, Diane's next baking try, or Frank's brewing project. They laughed and spoke, occasionally glancing at the snow outside with satisfaction. And so, after all the turmoil, the Wilsons reclaimed their core, kinship and faith. They no longer clung to prestige or pretense. Instead, they built a true home together. In their little Westwood house, under the frigid winter sky, the flame of love still flickered brightly, proof of their change and healing. The scene of a loving family gathered together, every face radiant in the firelight. Outside, snow kept falling, blanketing the quiet streets in white. That image closed a dramatic journey of transformation, through myriad knots, leaving behind only peace among bloodkin. Snow thickened outside, cloaking paths in pure white. Streetlights glowed faintly through the misty veil, turning Westwood's night ethereal. Inside the cozy home, the family sat by the hearth, its roaring flames warming the space. Amid their chatter, the front door swung open, a cold gust carrying swirling snowflakes inside. Ethan stepped in, his face alight, snow still dotting his shoulders. In his arms, he carefully held a small Christmas tree, its fresh green boughs wafting a mild pine scent. Ethan brushing snow off his coat. Hey, everyone. Someone clear a path. This tree's a bit heavy, but I wanted us to have a proper Christmas. Frank sprang up, about to help, when Amelia stepped forward, smiling and steadying the tree's base. Seeing his daughter's beaming smile, Frank paused, his heart swelling with joy at this unprecedented family warmth. Firelight played across Amelia's rosy cheeks. She gazed at Ethan with eyes full of love. Suddenly, she gently placed a hand on her belly, a tender gesture holding all the joy she was about to share. Amelia, her voice warm and emotional. I've got good news for everyone. We're expecting a new member soon. Her words sparked an explosion of delight. Diane instantly covered her face, emotions bursting. Frank nodded repeatedly, pride gleaming in his eyes. Rachel squealed, rushing to hug her sister. Rachel, teary and jubilant. Oh my gosh, amazing! You're pregnant? You're going to be a mom? Ethan couldn't hold back a happy grin. He set the tree down gently, stepping to Amelia's side, wrapping an arm around her waist. Ethan, eyes twinkling. I still can't get over it since you told me. Now everyone knows I really can't wait to be a dad. Diane leapt from her chair, striding quickly to Amelia, tears of joy streaming. Eenie! Diane laughing and crying, Oh, my girl, I'm going to be a grandma? Thank you. Thank you for giving me a chance to make up. I promise my grandkid won't lack anything. But this time, no waste. I'll do it all with my heart, not for show. Frank approached, lightly touching his daughter's shoulder. Frank, voice trembling with emotion. Amelia, I'm so incredibly proud of you. Since you were little, I only wished for your happiness. Seeing you with a full home now, it warms my heart in this winter. Amelia smiled, her eyes misty too. She knew that, through misunderstandings and disputes, her family had overcome countless hurdles to reach this sacred moment of togetherness. Rachel placed both hands on Amelia's, eyes shining. Rachel, soft but fervent, I'm truly happy for you. Before, I envied everything you had. Now, I just treasure you more. Let me be an awesome auntie to the little one, okay? Amelia nodded, clasping her sister's hand. The cracks between them, long festering, were now fully healed by this new joy heralding the future. And so, from tense conflicts, the Caldwells, formerly Wilsons finally, found what mattered most: family love. Wealth or status no longer loomed large. What they truly needed was unity, forgiveness, and readiness to support each other. Now their happiness doubled with a new member soon to arrive. Ethan cleared his throat, fingers laced with Amelia's. Ethan, all right, don't forget we've still got a mission to decorate this Christmas tree. Christmas is coming. Let's give the house some holiday cheer. Diane and Rachel chimed in eagerly. Frank settled into his chair, setting company papers aside, holding a mug of hot cocoa, watching everyone dive into decorating with zeal. Ethan set the tree in a spacious living room corner. Amelia pulled an old box of decorations from the cupboard, brimming with shiny baubles, tinsel, and wooden stars. Rachel excitedly held up handmade trinkets she'd snagged at last weekend's market: knitted angels, paper snowflakes, and a tiny bell that jingled when touched. Rachel, grinning wide, Look at these! I picked them for their rustic feel. I think we don't need flashiness, just simplicity and warmth. Amelia agreeing, Exactly. Christmas Eve's like our family, now simple but overflowing with love. Laughter rang everywhere as they took turns hanging decorations on the pine branches. Diane meticulously wound tinsel around the base. Rachel attached glittering baubles to the boughs. Ethan climbed a small stool, stretching to place the star on top, while Amelia stood below, assisting. Amid the chatter and laughs, Frank couldn't suppress a fulfilled smile. Leaning back in his chair, his eyes gleaming with happiness at seeing his family in harmony, warming the house with true reunion. He recalled those tense days, the pointless waste, realizing that only love and sincerity brought real joy. Diane, eyeing the twinkling star atop the tree, voice moved. Before, I thought we needed the biggest, most elaborate tree to be fancy. Now I get it. Christmas's meaning isn't in outward size, but the joy we share together. Ethan touching Diane's shoulder gently, reassuring. We can always change. I believe with love, every hurt can heal. Rachel hanging the final tinsel strand, beaming. We're done! Isn't the tree gorgeous? Amelia nodded slightly, reaching for Rachel's hand, gripping it tight. They shared a warm look. After everything, the sisters were close again. Like in childhood, no more grudges, no more pointless rivalry. The group returned to the sofa, clustering together. Ethan tossed logs into the fire, stoking its comforting warmth. Diane brought out a plate of fragrant cookies, while Frank proactively poured coffee and hot tea for each. The sweet, cozy scent of baked goods blended with chamomile from the teacups, turning the room into a festive haven. In that instant, no one mentioned debts, pressures, or the noisy past. With Christmas nearing, they just wanted to savor the moment. Hearty laughs, warm hugs, and gentle strokes on Amelia's belly where a new life was growing. Frank, sitting down, raising his tea mug. On this occasion, I toast to my future grandchild, may they be born into a family always loving and protective. I also hope our old mistakes stay a lesson to cherish each other more.
Taşını.
Amelia, snug against Ethan, voice full. Thanks, Dad. I believe my child will be happy, growing up with grandparents, an aunt, and parents who truly love. Diane couldn't hold back, setting her coffee down, wrapping her arms around both daughters. Rachel rested her head on her mom's shoulder, her arms circling behind Amelia. That embrace enclosed a bitter past, sweet present, and bright future. They'd crossed many thorns, secrets, and clashes, a journey painful enough to break anyone. Yet love and forgiveness carried the Caldwells through. For when hearts open wide, any wound can mend. And new life stands for hope. The dawn of a lovelier chapter. Warm golden light bathed the room. The Christmas tree glowed with baubles and blinking LED strands. Ethan rose, dimming the ceiling lights to heighten the holiday magic. They gathered by the tree, admiring their decorating efforts together. Laughter echoed through the space, mingling with sweet cookie scents, crackling fire, and spreading joy. It painted a reunion scene beyond perfection. Once chasing fleeting dreams, they now just wanted to bask in this full family moment. Diane stood abruptly, clapping lightly. Daisy! Diane, her smile joyful. Let's take another Christmas photo. This soon-to-be grandma wants to save every precious memory. Frank nodded, scrambling for his phone. Rachel volunteered to snap it, but the family insisted she join the frame. Finally, Ethan set the phone on a stand, set a timer, then dashed back, resting a hand on Amelia's shoulder. The chandelier, tree lights, and fireplace glow all merged into a cozy backdrop. The screen flashed, freezing their harmonious smiles, a peaceful close to a journey from rift to reunion. Sometimes we stray, prizing wealth over bonds, but bravely shedding flashy burdens leaves behind true connection. The Caldwells penned their life's new chapter, from tense conflict to understanding and grace. And now, with hope in the tiny member growing within, they grew sure of a dazzling future, where happiness is shared and love becomes the unbreakable thread tying every member tight.